but this will be available to everyone after. All right, so I think I covered, so if our interpreters, if you wanted to quickly share how to access the interpreting rooms, the audio channels. Zenaida, if you want to go first.
Zenaida, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry about that. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Zenaida. Yo voy a ser la intérprete de esta presentación. La presentación se trata de cómo ayudar a los niños a manejar lo que es la ansiedad durante esta pandemia del COVID-19. Entonces, la presentación va a tener una opción cuando Katrina o Cristina nos den la opción, va a ser la opción de interpretar. Ustedes lo van a ver al final, al pie de la página o a un lado, dependiendo del sistema que estén utilizando. Entonces, le va a aparecer lo que es la interpretación. Entonces, ustedes van a escoger lo que es la opción de español. Entonces, ahí, cuando ustedes lo escojan, me van a escuchar a mí. Desafortunadamente, no me van a poder hacer preguntas directas a mí porque yo no los puedo escuchar. Lo que pueden hacer es hacer las preguntas a través del chat, los pueden escribir y las consejeras hablan español, o sea que ellas mismas las pueden responder en español también. Entonces, cuando lo escriban las preguntas o la pueden hacer al final, cuando se salgan del programa de interpretación. Entonces, tienen que seleccionar el idioma. Entonces, al final, ya entonces pueden hacer las preguntas, pero no me las pueden hacer durante la presentación porque no las voy a poder escuchar. Que tengan buena presentación. Gracias. Okay.
Hong, if you would like to interpret that in Mandarin.
大家晚安。等一会儿呢，我们有中文翻译的，我会帮你们翻译哈。现在还没有开始，等一会儿你们下面可以选择，就是有一个地球的符号，你可以选择你的语言，然后你就是可以去到中文普通话那里选择，它是你只会听到我的声音，还有背景是英文的，比较小心一点。
Okay, thank you. So Christina, if you could turn on the interpreting now, and I will hand it off to Marcella.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marcella Mesqua, and I'm so happy to see so many of you joining us tonight. I've been working with a couple of my colleagues in providing you guys with this presentation tonight, and we really hope that you are able to gain a lot of useful information. We understand that these are very difficult times right now with the pandemic itself, with other things that everyone personally has going on. We can't imagine the stress that it's bringing upon everyone, and especially distance learning, since it's something that we've never experienced before, especially during a pandemic.
好，今天就是关于学习怎么样。
Sorry about that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you our presenters today, including myself. So like I said, my name is Marcella Mesqua. I'm a school counselor here in Fremont Unified. I work at Cabrillo Elementary School and also at Forest Park Elementary School. This is my second year with this school district. We also have Fabiola Camarillo. She's also a school counselor in Fremont, and she works at Blakeout Elementary School as well as Mission Valley Elementary School. And we also have Rebecca Glaze, who is the school counselor at Centerville Junior High School, and you will hear from them later on during this presentation. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions, you can utilize the chat box. Our counselors will be looking at the chat box, and we will pause and answer your questions if needed. If we see that it's a question that we will be answering throughout our presentation, don't think we're ignoring your question. We'll get to it. And you'll also have an opportunity to ask any questions towards the end of our presentation. So there will be a lot of opportunities.
这个是一个小学的
Okay. So let's start off by talking about what anxiety is. So anxiety is a naturally occurring emotion that can affect our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So think of this almost as a circle that goes around and around and around. That's how I like to think about it, because it starts off with our mind, our thoughts. When we start having negative thoughts, we start feeling it in our body. And then our body reacts to those feelings and we behave in specific ways. And everyone is very different. So the behaviors that you see in a child will vary by their age. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. I want you to know that everyone experiences anxiety. It's a normal feeling and it happens all the time. You may have already seen it in your child during distance learning. Maybe you yourself have been experiencing it during this time. I want you to know that it's normal and it will happen. And we want you today to be able to leave with some tools to help your child manage this anxiety better during this time. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, of nervousness, of unease, and it's usually about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So here we are during a global pandemic. We're not sure when it's going to end. We continuously hear different news, different updates, but we're not sure. We're not able to provide our kids with a timeline right now of when we're going back to school. And perhaps your child has been very anxiously asking you that. They probably miss their friends, they miss their teacher, they miss socializing with others. And that can cause a lot of anxiety for our students, not knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. I know we have some students who have transitioned off to junior high school and haven't even been able to be on their campus yet. We have freshman students in high school who have not yet been to their high school in person because that was an opportunity that was taken away from them once this started. So this anxiety might be building up and maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't. And like I said, we'll get to those behaviors or the things to look out for in just a moment. One thing I want to note is that
小学的辅导员他会
normal part of life. Keep in mind that if it's something that is persistent and it gets really intense, then it becomes more serious. And once it becomes to a certain point where we see that there's no progress, you see that you've tried helping your child cope with the tools that we might be giving you today, maybe you've talked to someone else as well, and you see that it's just getting worse, and especially if it's impacting their day-to-day activities, then that's when we recommend that you talk with your doctor if it gets worse. So if you see that it's impacting their day-to-day activities, that's a big red flag, and we encourage you to talk to your child's doctor. So what might cause anxiety? There's a very long list. I could go on.
焦虑症这个
Para esta noche quiero ofrecerle unas
ones that probably resonate most. So for one, the current news, the things that your child is listening to. If the news is something that is constantly on at your home, you might see that your child is experiencing some nervousness, some anxiety, because what do you typically hear in the news? Let's be honest, it's usually a lot of bad things. And when they start to only listen to, oh, these many people have been affected by COVID-19, these many deaths have occurred, they start to feel anxious because it's a normal feeling our body is reacting to when we get all this negative information. So keep in mind that the news and the current events can highly affect your child. Sometimes the smells, sounds, people and places, it can bring back memories, and that can also trigger anxiety for your children. Sometimes a family history as well. If your child has experienced something in the past regarding their family history, and maybe perhaps a a place or a person comes around, it can trigger that anxiety too. For our students in high school, making important life decisions during this time, applying to colleges, applying perhaps to colleges that are far or near, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, can be very anxious for them. It can be a very difficult time that can create all these thoughts and all these feelings that they might not know how to manage. When students are facing a problem or an unfamiliar situation. And again, distance learning is a great example of an unfamiliar situation. Even though we've been doing this for quite some time now, it's still very unfamiliar. And maybe your child is doing just fine, but we know that not every child is doing the best during this time. And that's because it's something we have not done before. Academic performance can also provoke a lot of anxiety. If we place a lot of pressure on our students to perform at a specific level, at a specific standard, and that's all that they're listening to. They have this pressure that they need to perform, that they need to be that A+ student, and also have these extracurricular activities to do, that they're not able to get a lower grade than a B-. Sometimes that can trigger a lot of anxiety for our students too. Social acceptance for our students in junior high school and high school too can be a big anxiety trigger. Trying to identify with their social bubble, trying to fit in. It's a time where they're going through a lot of different phases, and sometimes not knowing whether they can socialize with a specific group. Maybe they're having friendship drama, they don't know how to handle it. Things can become big and then it explodes, and they can make a big deal out of it, and because it is for them at that stage in life, and that can cause a lot of anxiety when they feel like they don't belong. So that's something else to keep in mind. And like I said before, there's a ton of other things. Maybe some of the things I mentioned you yourself resonated with, maybe not. I'm sure that if we had an open discussion about this, everyone can chime in and give even more examples of what I provided tonight. But these are some of the things that I wanted you to keep in mind. So now Fabiola is going to go ahead and explain how might anxiety look like or feel like for your student.
Hi, everyone. So as Marcella talked about all these things, right? Everything causes anxiety. What do I do? Well, that's what we're going to talk about first is identification. So if we all look at the picture, does this look familiar? The one to the left, you'll see like some of the things that happen and some more other stuff that happens to our body. So what we experience that can happen with anxiety to our bodies is our mind races. We feel overwhelmed. Our thoughts are just constantly racing. Therefore, we feel like dizzy, headaches, we feel disoriented, perhaps lightheaded with just blurry vision, not able to see because our brain is being affected too much, right? It's like we feel like we're pulling our hairs out. And on top of the headaches, we're not able to think clearly. As well as, right, a lot of people or a lot of chiropractors always say, where do you hold your stress, right? Most people hold their stress in their neck and their shoulders, other parts too, right? You know your body more, but we hold on to that tension and it just builds and builds to where you're like a football player, right? Because your like shoulders are so high, and that's the anxiety that is just kind of in there because we're not able to release it. So we'll talk about strategies later, but also having clenched eyebrows, dry mouth, extreme difficulty sleeping, trying to fall asleep might take forever. And when we do fall asleep, it's not restful REM sleep. And also a lot of pediatricians report, even in adults, but particularly for kids, nightmares, tremors, it's the anxiety because their mind is just going 1,000 points a minute. Also difficulty breathing, that can happen, breathing really fast or shallow, feeling breathless, right? You've seen in the movies where someone's having a panic attack and they grab the brown bag, right? The panic attack of just feeling like you can't breathe, feeling like something's on your chest. That can happen with the feeling of anxiety in our body, along with our heart pumping really fast, stomach knots, and just feeling like just bad butterflies, not the good butterfly kind, right? But just having the bad butterflies in our stomach, body aches, our bodies trembling or sweating, maybe sweating palms or face or all over. Also, just lack of appetite can happen as well, with just feeling nauseous, feeling we can't eat. And then just our body feeling overall restless, jittery feet, feeling like jelly legs. And that just causes a lot, right? That's a lot already in itself. So you could have a couple of symptoms, all of the symptoms, but regardless, is first trying to identify what's happening, what am I feeling, so that the first step is to identify to do something about it, and the strategies we're going to talk about. And then the last thing I wanted to mention around this photo is we often with anxiety tend to have a very high expectation of ourselves, right? So think about the perfection, but think about that sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, kids even more, right? Trying to navigate through this new way of learning, maybe still having to do their responsibilities at home, manage school. Maybe they have to do school a lot on their own because parents are doing other things like work. And so it's right, this new normal, I'm trying to navigate that. So a lot of times kids, even adults, have this pressure on themselves. They might not be receiving the pressure or might be receiving pressure and that puts more, but sometimes it comes from within. So just keeping that in mind. And if we look to the picture on the right side, we're seeing, how does anxiety present itself even more? And we talked about the difficulty sleeping, along with just feeling agitated and angry. So anxiety can bring up a lot more feelings. So it's like, whoa, are you angry? Are you mad? Are you hangry? Are you upset? Like, what's going on? And so anxiety can present itself in different ways. Also, the student or adult might be feeling of not wanting to go to school, not wanting to log in. Every day I talk to parents with the tendency of my child doesn't want to log in. I don't know what to do, or not wanting to do the work. Anxiety can affect that. Of course, the ability to learn or even just be part of the group, even if it's in Zoom. Also, anxiety can present itself in, just like we talked about, the stomach aches and headaches, just all around. So is it more of the anxiety that's causing the stomach ache, the headache, versus the other stuff like, oh, are you getting sick or anything like that, right? Because those feelings can make us feel like we are sick of just the stomach ache, the headache. Also, difficulty struggling to pay attention. This is number one within that all teacher, a lot of teachers report of just like, how do we engage with students, right? Especially being in a virtual, causing anxiety of, they're not listening to me. And perhaps the kids thinking, no one's looking at me, right? So it's kind of that two-way of, it goes both ways. And so first step, as I said, is to identify and acknowledge that so we can do something about it, and the strategies we'll talk about later. And then also just feeling worried about situations, everything in the world, right? We had the fires while we had COVID and some other things, and things are getting worse. And so as Marcella pointed out, what are things that we can do to help us that we'll talk about later, but what things do we eliminate as well? So we're gonna have to eliminate certain things, right? Limiting the news. And do we end the night with like soothing music? Just an example, so that we can identify and recognize that, oh, I'm feeling all this anxiety and stress. I need to do something about it. And the skills we'll talk about if we go to the next slide of our toolbox, right? Imagine that we have this invisible toolbox or backpack with all these tools that you can help your child, support ourselves first, because one thing that I always say is, how do we deal with certain feelings first? Because we're role modeling for our kids. And so if we're practicing tools from our toolbox and self-care strategies, then our kids will see that and start to do that as well. So role modeling is the key. And so if we look at the tools in our toolbox to manage anxiety, we want to be able to do that exercise. Yes, when people think of, I don't want to exercise, but something fun, right? People love to dance. That's exercise. People find relief in yoga, stretches, one that, and I'll do one activity with you guys. So if we just sit up straight in the chair, because we're all sitting, right? Most of us are. And just kind of feel like you're growing tall like a tree. So we breathe in as we're feeling tall. As we're holding our breath, then we turn to the right and release as we turn. So we're stretching that body to kind of release tension, and then going back to center and feeling like you take a deep breath, like that's going down through our feet all the way back up to our head, and just tall as we're breathing in, holding it as we turn to the left now. And I'm turning to you guys, but we want to turn our entire body. Sorry, I'll do it. Turn our entire bodies, turn to the left, and then release. So doing that a few times, right? Whether it's students in class, whether it's us and parents, adults at work, being able to model and just even do that. That takes a couple of seconds, doing 5, doing 6. And that really releases the tension of like, whoa, I didn't realize. When I go to sleep, I'm like, oh, where did this come from? Because I wasn't paying attention to my body. I didn't have to pay for it. That's another story. So also with exercise, yoga, good stretching, journaling, right? We constantly tell kids in class, writing down feelings, because sometimes it's a lot harder to find the words to talk to a person because we don't know what the reaction might be. So always encouraging kids to write down their thoughts, and these are your thoughts, to be able to kind of read them and see what can you do now that we know what we're feeling. And of course, music does wonders in healing. And so being able to just find a music to tune that you can relate to, you know, your kids more. So knowing what type of music they like, or trying different music, right? Whether it be on YouTube or Pandora or iHeartRadio, so many things that we can just find music, because that really helps our minds, and studies show that. Also, the other thing is tuning into our senses. There's this grounding exercises of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so we look at, to kind of keep us grounded and mindful, I always tell kids, what are 5 things that we see around us, right? So that when you notice your kid wandering around while they should be focusing on the work, you know, doing a grounding exercise. Oh, let's take a break. What are 5 things that you see around to bring us back into the room so we can focus on what we need to do? And then 4 things that we feel. So a thing that you see, the screen, a light, so forth. 4 things that we feel. So I am touching my chair, I'm touching my desk, I'm touching my shirt. So things that we feel and can touch around us without getting up. And then 3 things that we can hear, right? So I'm next to the window. Do I hear cars? Do I hear the birds chirping? Someone in the kitchen baking cookies? And 2 things that we smell, right? So that sense of smell too, lavender and tea tree is what I have in my house. So it could be an essential oil, or you can make your own essential oil, right? Because we have some time, but those smells that are smooth, soothing, really helps our mind. And the last thing is, what can we taste, right? Tea, water, coffee, not for kids, hot cocoa. So those kind of senses of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 things we see, 4 things we feel, 3 things we hear, 2 things we smell, and 1 thing we taste, helps just kind of ground us back into helping us manage our anxieties. And some other things are the practicing gratitude. So it's so easy to go to the dark places of what I hate right now in my life. I can't go do this or that, can't celebrate as we normally do at Christmas, but that's okay. And having conversations of what is positive. So instead of focusing on the negative, what's positive? Oh, we can have now include more people in our family in a Zoom dinner for the holidays, or have some type of pajama party in Zoom for the holidays, or could be writing down what are all the things that are going well. I'm healthy, mom's healthy, dad's healthy, grandma's healthy, or whoever, looking at the positive, because there is always positives, but it's so harder to think of the positive, so easier to go to the bad. So it's really talking to ourselves and working with our minds and helping our kids, role modeling too, and being like, yeah, you're right, we can't go out and go to the snow this year, but what can we do? What can we do at the house? Can we have a Frozen party, right, from the movie? Like something that makes it more themed, that's just as fun, because those are the things that the kids are going to remember. They're going to remember the memories that you created while we were in shelter in place. We don't want them to remember how miserable everybody was, including my family. So it's just thinking of that. And then other things are meditating, as we said, and breathing. We practice that with that breathing while we're on the chair and twisting our bodies, and taking time, something that we love that's soothing. So for me, as a counselor, I learned early on that I had to practice self-care. Otherwise, it was going to be a very difficult night. So what can you have? A tea, a coffee, hot cocoa, something that's a special drink that's nice and soothing, because that sense of taste really helps for kids. Now, of course, we don't want them to have hot cocoa all day, every day, but something that's just nice and soothing to relax them, whether at bedtime or in the morning, with, of course, modifications of not a huge cup, along with also creating a plan to problem solve. So I always work with kids to, okay, here's our problem. What is our problem first, right? Identifying, because that might not be the problem that they think, it might be different problems. So role modeling, helping them understand what's the problem, what are we feeling, and what are the possible solutions. I always have kids go from A, B, C, D, so that their mind can start to work and eventually they can do it on their own. We're just helping them, guide them. Also getting creative, drawing, dancing, listening. When I visited classrooms and I talk about what their self-care strategies, just the stuff that their imagination of what they're doing. I mean, I grew up on Legos, and now there's a lot more things that they create. And that gives them such a sense of pride. Oh, I built this, I created this. So really being able to help kids, and what can we do? What can we build? What can we create? Drawing on YouTube, on the internet, there's so much stuff, but on YouTube, you can find simple drawing, teaching kids, and you and your kids can be in the living room or in the kitchen and all learning how to draw. And so it's just building those experiences as well really helps, for not just the short term, but the long term as well. And then lastly, identifying unhelpful thoughts. So helping them kind of go through their thoughts of, what do you think is causing this feeling? What do you think it might feel? So I always go with kids, instead of, oh, you're feeling sad or mad. Oh, it looks like you are upset or you're nervous because you're shaking, because your fists are clenched, you're sweating. So it's really trying to help them understand what their body is showing you. It's not conducive if we say you're mad, you're sad. We got to teach them how. And so it's helping them so that eventually they can identify themselves. So good practice to use words of, what are you feeling in your body? My stomach hurts, my head hurts. What else? What does it feel like? It feels like it's full, and my tummy is just like something is just not going away. It's like a stabbing sensation. So well, that might not be a good word for it, but like aching. So we want to be able to help them use words. And then we also have on the bottom of this picture, Psychology Today. These are top 10 stress busters that you can look on your own. And it's basically just 10 tips for teens that to help them relieve pressures with anxiety and stress. And so we put an article you can view on your other. So we can go on. Unless there's any questions. Oh, great. Someone did that and it was fun. And we can go on to the next. And here is Rebecca Glaze, who will now talk about some great stuff.
Hi, everybody. So I get to do the part of the presentation where we're going to talk about some strategies you can try at home. This strategy is the Self-Regulation Training Board. And I love this strategy. This is something that I went to a training for my teenage students, but I loved it so much that I bought the childhood version of it and have it in the living room at my house. So I'm going to walk you through this. You can purchase this. The link is on there if you want. It's about $40. To be honest, it's really cute for little kids to have this. I draw it when I'm at Centerville with my students, and when I was at Washington High School, I just draw the 3 pieces and write the word on the top because it's really just the graphics that make this for children, right? The truth is, anxiety is something that all people struggle with, all people will deal with. You'll never stop having anxiety because you'll never be at a time in your life where things are completely 100% known. There's always going to be some uncertainty. There's always going to be something that you can't control. And as long as that's happening, there's going to be some anxiety in your life. So the more frequently that you work on self-regulating and handling your anxiety, the better you're going to feel about it. Sometimes my 6-year-old has better self-regulation strategies than I do, because she practices more than I do. And that's just the truth. It's just something we have to work on. So the way the Self-Regulation Training Board works is it just goes through the things that Marcella and Fabiola were talking about. We recognize our warning signs. This can take a while. This is something where you really have to start becoming in tune with yourself. But maybe you notice that your hands start to feel jittery, and that helps you know that you're anxious. Or maybe you notice that your jaw starts to hurt because you're clenching your mouth. Maybe you hear that your voice is wavering, and that tells you that you're feeling anxiety. Whatever that warning sign is, the warning sign in your body helps you identify what you're feeling. And when you can identify the feeling, then you can use some coping mechanisms to help with that feeling. So this board, for example, says my warning signs, and you take the little X and you place it on your body where you feel that. My 6-year-old one time placed it on her foot, and I said, "Why did you put it on your foot?" And she stomped her little foot and said, "Oh, because I just feel so mad." And it really is a warning sign for her. When she stomps her foot, she can see it. She realizes that she's angry, and then that's something she needs to work on. Some of these, there's a lot of yoga on this. I actually took a lot of these and I just flipped them over, and I put some other strategies too. I put counting to 10. I put deep breaths. I put go to my room and read a book. A lot of times we set this up, going to your room, as a consequence for our kids. We tell them, you're not behaving well, you need to go to your room. But we can really flip that and empower our children and our teenagers to self-regulate and identify when you need a break, and then be a healthy person who takes that break. We all need breaks sometimes. And parents, if you're the one that needs a break, it's okay to tell your kids and model this. I'm stressed out right now. I need a break. I'm going to my room for 3 minutes, and then they need to respect your 3 minutes while you get that break. Hopefully you get more than 3 minutes. So this is a really great strategy that we can use at all ages. The next strategy that I wanted to talk to you guys about is on the next slide. And Fabiola did a really good job of talking about restorative yoga. Yoga is really encouraged for anxiety. It helps us feel control of our body. It helps us identify how our body is feeling. And then just those deep breaths are really valuable for getting oxygen into our bodies. A lot of what happens when we're feeling anxiety is that we start to hyperventilate and we don't even realize we're doing it until our body starts to hurt. So frequently, panic attacks are mistaken for severe health problems. And really what they are is a lack of oxygen in your body because you're not breathing. So if we can take the opportunity to sit up straight, put our head up toward the ceiling, take the deep breath and let it back out, it makes an amazing difference in your body and your mind. Your ability to focus, your ability to not yell, your ability to control your emotions. And so it's a really positive, healthy thing for us to do. We recommend usually that you do 5 deep breaths. Sometimes I don't feel that it's working until the end of that 4th deep breath. And sometimes I have to do a whole nother set of 5, and that's okay. But the truth is that these activities are very short. It takes about 20 seconds to do 5 deep breaths, and it really does generally make you feel better by the end of it. And 20 seconds is definitely something we can spare to have a better day and to be able to focus on our classwork, to be able to be attentive in class again, a really great thing for kids. The other thing that's on this page is the mindfulness in a jar. I got this on Scholastic. You know how you buy the books from Scholastic from the teachers and then you get all those points for buying the books. So I got this just for free, but they have it on Amazon for $9.99. And when I first got it, I was like, sure, it's free. I'll try it. I put it on the table in my office. And then a little girl came in, a teenager came in and she was having a panic attack. And I said, you know what, let's try this. Can you grab one of these cards and let's do it together? She took one of the cards and there's about 100 different cards with little different breathing activities. Very easy, very short instructions. And then they have you do 5 breaths in whatever that activity is. And it became our routine. When she would have panic attacks, she'd come in. Sometimes one card was good and she could go back to class. Sometimes she'd need more than one card. But it helped her develop a plan, and then it actually helped her be able to identify in class, I'm starting to feel like I'm having a panic attack. I'm going to do this breathing activity that I really liked and was helpful. And she was able to not even leave class after a while. So they're baby steps to recognizing our symptoms, and we don't always, we have backslides, but if you can start to realize those and have tools like good breathing exercises to work on, it's really a benefit for our teenagers and our younger ones as well. The next slide has the last strategy that I wanted to show you. And this is something that I use all the time at the junior high level. I used it a ton at the high school too. It's a great graphic and kids are used to the Venn diagrams. They're used to things like this. These are the circles of control. And on the left-hand side is a standard circle of control. That the things I can control are my words, my actions, my ideas, my play, my effort, my mistakes, and my behavior. Those are things I can control, and those are things I'm responsible for. The second circle are things that are outside of my control. Other people's mistakes. I can't hold myself responsible for that. I can't feel anxiety over that because it wasn't something I had control of, and it's not something I have responsibility of. Other people's feelings, other people's ideas. I can't control other people. I have to let them control themselves, and they'll have the consequences for their ideas. Other people's behavior, other people's play, other people's words, and other people's actions. So those are a normal circle of control. In the center, I just pulled a COVID one in because these are specific things that I just found online that are COVID related, things that I can control when I'm worried about the uncertainty of this virus. Washing my hands and practicing good hygiene, I can control that. Staying home, consuming healthy things like healthy food, drinking water, a healthy amount of media and news coverage. I can control my self-care, my meditation, my positive self-talk, my thoughts, my actions. I can control reaching out for support and helping others. Things that I can't control. I can't control this virus. I can't control this situation. And sometimes it can be really important in anxiety to just acknowledge the things that we cannot control, but also the things that we can, and focus on doing the things that we can do will help us lessen our anxiety. The third piece on the right-hand side is just a standard circle. This one's from Teachers Pay Teachers, but you can just literally, trace a plate or a bowl or something at your house. And then on the inside, put things you can control in there. You can use these circles as an example, and things that you can't control on the outside, and just really focus on that inner circle, that these are the things I can control and these are the things that I can focus on, and let the other things go. So I hope those are helpful. Fabiola is going to come back on and share some community resources.
Maybe did Fabiola get kicked off? Don't.
I can go ahead and finish out the slides, or until Fabiola gets here, if that's okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Becky.
I was worried about my internet tonight, so poor Fabiola. That happens to all of us. This is how our kids feel every day. This is the anxiety we're talking about. So we are really lucky in Fremont. We live in such a fabulous community. We have lots and lots of community resources, and all the counselors, we have meetings. Fremont is a great school district. We have meetings every month, and they update us on community resources, on places that have openings, anything new that's going on. They connect with the police department and share that with us. So these are just some of the resources that we thought, the kind of the main ones for you. There are lots and lots, but the crisis hotlines that are available, Alameda County Support Hotline is really, really great for crisis support and suicidality. And they have a website, www.crisissupport.org. The Peer Support Hotline is a non-emergency support-based program out of San Francisco. Their phone number is there, and they have a parent support group too. Parents, I'm a parent in this too, and I have to tell you that I think a lot of my kids' anxiety comes from me. And if you're feeling anxiety, just throwing that out there as someone who cares about you also, that's normal. That's real right now. And go ahead and sign up, check in on these parent support groups. It just feels good to know other people are going through this and you're not alone and you're normal. This text hotline, the next one, is the one that I give my students. I mean, it's always my number one recommendation for my students. You just text home, the word home, HOME, to 741-741, and they have counselors 24 hours a day, around the clock. They're confidential. They go through a phone service, so you text them and then it gets encrypted, so it's completely confidential. Kids can feel safe to talk about what's going on. And then some counseling resources here. We have Tri-City Mental Health. It's a great mental health program and social service. Regardless of your insurance, they're a good place to start. Youth and Family Services do individual and family counseling. When we're at school, we have a relationship with Youth and Family Services, and they actually will even come on campus and meet with students, which is awesome. They usually only work with students who have Medi-Cal, but during this pandemic, they've said they'll open up to everyone. So honestly, they're great. Their director, Lori Linscheid, is really, really wonderful. You can call her, and for Medi-Cal families, they are free, and then they'll have a sliding scale for other families as well. Definitely contact your pediatrician. They can help you figure out what your insurance does cover and which counseling is an option for you. And then you can always contact your school counselor. We have a ton more resources than this. And if we know your, specific situation and what your concern is, we can help set you up with the right rules. Okay, and then these are just some of our favorite websites. This was hard because there's 3 of us and we didn't want to like overwhelm you, but we just did a few of our favorites each. The Anxiety Workbook is wonderful. Free Tools to Manage Anxiety, positivitycenter.org. The 10 Activities to Support Kids with Anxiety is a great one. iMessages and Think Before You Speak are just short videos to center us in the way we think about things and the way we respond to things that can cause anxiety or conflict in our homes. And then the mini meditations at the bottom, it's a whole series and they're all wonderful. I love them. So these are all great websites. You don't have to go through them all, but you can check them out and see what you like.
All right, and that leads us to the end of our presentation and the tools that we had to share with you all regarding anxiety and how to help your child manage anxiety. So we want to open this time up for any questions that perhaps weren't answered throughout the presentation. You can go ahead and type it in the chat box, and then we'll go ahead and answer them.
And I did see one question in there for the text home. Should we expect charges on this service?
That's a really good question. Thank you for reminding me to say that it's free. It is a free service. They also have a phone number if you prefer that. You can just ask them on the text, or it's on, if you go to teentextline.either.com or org. They also have a phone number, but the kids really enjoy the texting. Generally speaking, that's their best way. The only piece that's not confidential is that the phone number will show up on the phone bill of the parents. So just, I always, let the kids know that at least your parent will be able to tell who you called. They just can't see what you said. As far as some other questions, I was just kind of looking through it. Marcella, were you answering these as we went, or should I go through and?
I was not.
So let me just sneak back up here. I'm glad these are seeming helpful for you guys. We were really trying to make it positive things that would be beneficial. Oh, good. Mindfulness in the Jar. Yeah, it's on Amazon. Have you seen the increased use of technology in this time increasing anxiety? I think the whole world and the way we're living is increasing anxiety. I think it's really hard to pinpoint because they're on technology for so long. We have noticed it's definitely affecting everybody. And the lack of socialization is really causing a lot of anxiety. For some of our kids who experienced anxiety before, they're actually feeling a little better with the online school. It's really interesting. I think I'm hopeful that we could learn some good things from this, and maybe some options for kids other than a 1,000 child school like the one that I work at, because some of the kids are really feeling better being able to be home in their safe space. But yeah, Zoom fatigue is so real for kids and teachers alike. Definitely, I hear you on that. I think the important thing is the balance of it. And, if students are saying that they're feeling Zoom fatigue, if they're saying that they're feeling overwhelmed by the technology, have them cut the video games at night. Honestly, if they won't feel it anymore. We want to be mindful. We want to make sure that we're giving them breaks. Have them engage in their PE class. That is such an important piece. Get a reason to go outside and be in the fresh air every day for some little time. And then just try and, if everyone's home anyway, try to carve out a little more family time. Make this an opportunity for your family to really connect in ways that they weren't able to before.
There was a question, if you could please explain again the text home and how that works.
Okay, yeah, so it's just a teen text line. So it's like a crisis hotline, but on your phone for texting. And you just text the word home, HOME, to the number 741741. It's the Teen Crisis Hotline. They have a website as well. They're a nationwide program. They're recommended by Kaiser. Kaiser recommends them when they come and do their Nightmare on Liberty Street presentation for us. I've heard really good things from kids that have used them. One of the benefits for kids, especially teenagers, is that it's 24 hours a day. So a lot of times our teenagers start feeling anxiety at night. Everyone's asleep. They've been up. Again, the technology piece, a lot of their anxiety comes from social anxieties that maybe someone ghosted them on Instagram, or someone said something mean on Snapchat, or they weren't tagged in a TikTok thing. And it's the being left out causes this anxiety, or something mean was said in a chat. And so it'll be the middle of the night, and it's really helpful that they have someone who's available there for them. It's a confidential program, and it is counselors who are on the line responding to them. So there are some other programs that students will sometimes connect with, but they don't always have actual counselors. And so this is a really safe, secure place to go, because you know that they're talking to someone who has training and who's going to give them sound advice.
Hey, Becca, well, I'm back because I got logged out. Internet issues, of course. Before I got logged out, I was going to ask you, because someone posted a question around that board that you have, that link underneath. Was that the link to it to get it on Amazon? Because someone asked if they can have the link, and I imagine it was on the bottom of that picture.
It is, but it's a different website. It's I think Lighthouse or Lifehouse, something like that. It's on the slide. If we could go back to it, you can.
I just posted it in the chat. Actually, the link that that was on that.
Youth Light. That's what it is.
And I found the mindfulness jar, so I will also I just found it on Amazon, so I'll link that too in the chat.
Great.
Awesome.
And we have other questions that I want to make sure we get to before our time is up for tonight. There's a question if there is a parent group or virtual meet for parents to speak with each other and share ideas for helping each other. So there is that community resource slide that you will be able to go back to. There is a phone number there. So Youth and Family Services is currently hosting parent support groups twice a week, and it is not yet rolled out in Spanish. I know they are working on it. I know that's a question that might come up, so I just wanted to address it. These support groups have been happening. I have heard very positive things from parents. There's someone facilitating it, and you're able to share ideas, share your own struggles, and just feel really connected, because everyone is struggling with something right now. So you're able to bounce ideas from parent to parent and talk about perhaps strategies that you are utilizing at home with your child, and perhaps you can utilize it with your own children too. Can I share the recording with others once it's available? Yes. You can go ahead and share it.
Yeah,
do you have any tips? Go ahead.
I'll send out I will send out the recording. I'll post it on our parent engagement page on the FUSD website, and I will also send it out to all of the counselors so they can share it.
Awesome. Thank you, Katrina. There is another question. Do you have any tips on encourage and motivate kids to help out with additional chores? Parents are under more pressure from working and juggling multiple things.
I say one of the best strategies that I've seen like online with parents just being creative is making it into like a payment of not like actual money, but something that they want. So if they want extra time on a certain privilege, that's not a right? The only thing that's a privilege is a roof over your head and food, but everything else like video games, TV, going out and doing activities, even if it's, you know, all that is a privilege. And so being able to use those incentives will really motivate kids to do extra chores.
Thank you, Fabiola.
And then I saw, yeah, and I also saw a really creative study where some parents did, they do movie nights every Friday. And so doing chores gets them to have popcorn, you know, little candies with their popcorn, or, you know, little sweets or snacks. So it's kind of like a movie theater in the kitchen where, oh, I did this, and this as my chore, so I will have popcorn, I'll have a drink, you know, so just making it creative and fun at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you, Fabiola. Another question, how do you motivate kids to complete or focus on schoolwork through Zoom? Sorry, were you guys able to listen? I'll repeat the question. How do you motivate kids to complete or focus on schoolwork through Zoom?
Same thing, incentives. That's something that I talk with parents every day. And it's really about what kind of structures do we have at home that we could put in place or have been in place. And, oh, I didn't. So incentives and making it as an incentive, what's motivating? So things that don't cost, but it could be like more time on the privileges, as we talked about, something that they can earn. So is there something big that they're wanting that maybe you've been thinking of getting for the house to entertain? And so making it where everybody has to work towards it. So if everybody gets on the Zoom and stays and does their work, what's a treat that you get? What's a treat everybody gets? And so it's just making it as an incentive and motivation factor.
Yeah, another thing that can be helpful is, especially for the older students, is just a manipulative, a stress ball. I know this sounds silly, but a little bit of slime or Play-Doh. It's really helpful to just have something that they can mess with. You can get those stretch bands that you use for exercise and tie one to the bottom of the chair legs. And so they can bounce their feet on it. I know I have a hard time sitting all day long. I'm sure you all are sitting all day long too. So we get where our kids are feeling this right now. At the junior high level, we have, I saw the question earlier about if we can build breaks in. What I recommend to our students is when your class is over, go ahead and log into your next class so that you're not late, and then take a few minutes and run around and go do something. So make sure that you're there in the waiting room already, and then, you know, do something active once you get in there, because you'll have a few minutes, but you just have to carve those times out for yourself. And it's okay to stand up. It's okay to move, you know, just put your computer up on some boxes or some books and stand up for a bit.
Another question in the chat is, my boy is going to be 7. He has difficulties in sleeping alone since epidemic started. He has lots of scared imagination, like a monster breaks into his bedroom. I have to sleep with him now. Any suggestions?
So sleeping issues is what everyone's reporting. And so some of the suggestions that I give to parents is, what are things that we can put into the bedtime routine that will help, right? That sense of smell, some lavender spray, or tea tree oil or chamomile, even the drink chamomile, even just a little bit of tea to just, that's decaf, of course, right? Just to kind of soothe the body, or warm milk with honey. So building that in, along with sounds or sounds of calming music. Right now, right, the Calm app and Headspace are free apps that you can download on your phone, but I use Alexa or sometimes YouTube, and I just put calming music to help me sleep. And there's just a plethora of just soothing sounds, nature sounds, to just help that mind. And the other thing with the monster, I saw a creative study of just helping the kid of, if there's a monster, what does the monster look like? So not being afraid of the monster, but what can we tell the monster? Can we perhaps put some, right, making imagination? Can we put some cookies for the monster so it'll be nice? Can you, a night light? So things that will kind of help and not steer away and say there's no monster, because the monster is internal, right? Or it could be just sounds of all this that's creating chaos in our head. How do we alleviate it? So I think some of those things have been proven to work to help with the bedtime nightmares. Any other suggestions on that you guys can add to it?
I think everything you mentioned is great. As we're wrapping up, someone asked where they can buy the admission table. The link for the table that Rebecca talked about is linked onto the slide. So you have access to this presentation. So you can go back and click on the link that is embedded in that slide. There's a lot of other comments that were made. I know there's a lot of difficulties right now, and every individual student is experiencing anxiety differently. And perhaps what we're recommending right now in general, you can use as a start point, and maybe you need to modify that, right? So we want to encourage you to please reach out to your school counselor at your site. They will be able to make time and schedule time with you to really hear you out in detail, ask you questions, give you other suggestions on how to modify these techniques and tools that we just talked about, so that it perhaps aligns better with what your child is experiencing right now. Because we understand that every student is different, and not one technique is going to work across the board. And sometimes it's just trial and error. So that's another thing. We have to be patient until we find what our child, what works best for our child. So for tonight, we don't have time for more questions. But again, please reach out to your school counselor. Every school in Fremont fortunately has a school counselor. So make sure you go ahead and talk to them, connect with them. We are a great resource. We love to help. That is the one thing, major thing we do out of a lot of things we do at our sites. So please utilize us, because we are a resource and we are here to support you and your child. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate everyone showing up.
Yes, and thank you so much to Marcella, Fabiola, and Becca for sharing all of this really great information and all of the tips and resources. And again, if you have any other questions, please reach out to your counselors at the schools, and we will have the presentation, which has the links to all of the resources and the table and the jar and the mindfulness jar in the presentation, and we'll send out a recording tomorrow. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me a second. I'm just going to remove the rest of the parents in here. And Christina, you can turn off the interpreting now.